Let's move on to music.
If you want my opinion, you come to the pub and I'll tell you my opinion.
Suzi Quatro und Smokey-Sänger Chris Norman singen exklusiv für unsere Show im Duett.
Two rock icons came together in the late 70s for a duet that still echoes decades later. Suzi Quatro and Chris Norman's voices blended perfectly, creating a song that fans couldn't stop playing. But behind the music, something always seemed unsaid. For over 40 years, rumors, whispers, and speculation surrounded their collaboration. Was it just chemistry on stage? Or was there something more? Now, at 75, Suzi is finally opening up, offering reflections and stories from a time that fascinated fans and fueled questions for generations. In this video, we'll explore the moments that made their partnership unforgettable, the challenges they faced, and the revelations that cast their legendary duet in a whole new light.
Yeah. I was there. Whatever it was he had, I knew it would be in me, whatever that was, that spark,
Back in the late 1970s, music was all over the place in the best possible way. There were shiny disco balls, loud guitars, punk haircuts, and a sense that anything could happen if you had the right sound. Somewhere in the middle of that storm stood Suzi Quatro, the leather-wearing, bass-playing dynamo from Detroit. She wasn't trying to make a statement at first. She just wanted to play music.
I was watching the Ed Sullivan Show, which is what was the show in America. At Sunday, everything stopped, 8 o'clock, family sat down, watched the Ed Sullivan Show. And I had one sister sitting next to me, the one 9 years older, so she was the right age. And he said, "Oh, now for you youngsters," he said, Elvis Presley. And she started to scream and pull her hair, and I'm
really,
I'm looking at her.
This was Arlene, was it?
Arlene, yeah. I said, "What are you doing?" I'm confused. What are you doing? Then I looked at the TV and I remember he was doing "Don't Be Cruel," and he went, and I went, and I felt this. I can only describe it as a sexual thrill, of course.
But by the time songs like "Can the Can" and "Devilgate Drive" started climbing the charts, she'd accidentally become something bigger. A symbol of raw confidence and female rebellion in a space mostly ruled by men. She sold more than 50 million records, toured the world, and did it all without toning herself down. The jumpsuit, the attitude, the mullet, they all became part of the legend. On the other side of the Atlantic, Chris Norman was having his own kind of success. He fronted the British band Smokey, whose songs had this easy, sing-along charm that made them a favorite across Europe.
Later on, because we found we had this harmony thing, which was one of our lucky things to have naturally within the band, we had this natural harmony thing, which the three of us could just sing together in a room and it would sound great,
There was Living Next Door to Alice, which everyone seemed to know the lyrics to, and If You Think You Know How to Love Me, which made hearts melt a little every time he sang it. His voice had that rough, smoky warmth that felt familiar even if you were hearing him for the first time. While Suzi brought fire and edge, Chris had this calm, steady glow, like a campfire instead of a wildfire. And then, fate decided to mix those two elements. It happened in 1978 at a party in Düsseldorf, Germany, the kind of random setting where great ideas are born without warning. Mike Chapman and Nicky Chin were there too. They were the hit-making duo behind many of Suzi's songs, and they'd also worked with Smokey. Somewhere between the laughter, the drinks, and studio talk, Chapman started humming something. "Our love is alive," he sang under his breath. And then he looked at Suzi and said, "What if you did this with Chris?" It wasn't a planned collaboration, just one of those passing suggestions that suddenly feels too good to ignore. Suzi was intrigued. Chris, when he heard about it, was curious too. The next thing they knew, they were in the studio recording a song that would change both their careers, Stumblin'in. It was different from what Suzi usually did. Softer, slower, but still full of feeling. Chris brought this tender, unhurried tone that balanced her grit perfectly. They didn't overthink it. they just sang. And somehow, what came out sounded honest, like two people caught in a moment they weren't expecting. When the song was released, it became an instant hit. It climbed charts and stirred up rumors about what was really happening between them. Their voices fit together so naturally that people started to wonder if the connection went beyond the music. But that was only the beginning of the fascination that would follow.
We'll look at another performer and know instinctively what they can use themselves, not steal, but what they can use themselves.
Not long after, Suzi and Chris were everywhere, on talk shows, award stages, and music programs from London to Los Angeles. Their duet quickly became a TV favorite. Whenever they performed Stumblin'in on Top of the Pops or American Bandstand, the air seemed to shift. Suzi gripped her bass with that fierce energy she was known for. Chris leaned in with his easy grin, and somewhere between the verses, their eyes would meet just long enough to get the tabloids buzzing. Their chemistry was undeniable. Suzi's raw power met Chris's melodic calm, and the result felt almost too natural. Fans could feel it, and reporters couldn't stop writing about it. "Is there more to this duet than meets the eye?" one headline teased. But behind the spotlight, things were far less dramatic and a lot more professional. In a rare joint interview from 1979, Chris called Suzi a force of nature, admiring her discipline and drive. Suzi smiled and returned the compliment, describing him as the perfect gentleman, someone who grounded her when she got carried away. During their brief tour together across Europe and the US, audiences noticed the playful teasing, the easy laughter, and the way their voices melted into one another on stage. One fan who attended a London show that year said, "They looked like they were in their own world up there." Still, the rumors didn't die down. Paparazzi photos of them dining together in Los Angeles fed whispers of a secret romance. The irony was that both were married, Suzi to her guitarist Lynn Tuckey since 1976, and Chris to his wife Linda since 1970. The gossip kept swirling anyway, fueled by the song's lyrics about love that catches you off guard. Music critics joined the speculation too. In a retrospective from the 80s, Robert Christgau wrote that their voices entwine like lovers, making you question where performance ends and reality begins. Time moved on, but every now and then they'd reunite. In 2004, they performed Stumblin'in again for a charity event, and the same spark seemed to flicker back instantly. The audience roared as if decades hadn't passed at all. Suzi would later say the song opened doors for her in America and made people see another side of her beyond the leather and the attitude. Chris, in his 2017 autobiography, called their collaboration a highlight, hinting with a touch of nostalgia that there was always something special there. These cryptic comments kept the intrigue alive, setting the stage for Suzi's recent revelations. You see, while Stumblin'in hit big, it wasn't just a chart success. It threw both Suzi and Chris into a level of attention that came with unexpected pressures. And while doors opened, they also had to navigate challenges far beyond music. For Suzi, the 1980s came like a test of endurance and evolution. She wasn't just playing music anymore. She was becoming a public figure with layers of expectations attached to her name. The role of Leather Tuscadero on Happy Days might have seemed like the perfect fit, the cool rocker girl with confidence and edge. But behind the scenes, Suzi was trying to find her footing in an industry that didn't always value authenticity as much as it claimed to. She still released music, like Rock Hard in 1980, but the environment around her often pushed her to lean into glamour when all she really wanted was to keep being bold, loud, and unapologetically herself. In a 2020 interview, she admitted how that tension shaped her career, saying that people in the business wanted me to be physically appealing, not strong. It's one of those lines that tells you everything. The quiet struggle of someone trying to be taken seriously in a world that preferred her image over her voice. And then, there were the whispers that never seemed to go away. Every new interview, every new appearance, someone always found a way to circle back to Chris Norman. The chemistry that once worked so beautifully in Stumblin'in now lingered like a question she couldn't quite escape. At home, Suzi was married to her guitarist, Len Tucky, and together they had 2 children, building a life that blended music and family. But life on the road, the industry demands, and those constant rumors took their toll. By 1992, after 16 years of marriage, the two went their separate ways. Suzi found herself navigating single parenthood while still keeping her career alive, performing, recording, touring, all while carrying the invisible weight of public scrutiny. It makes you wonder how she managed to keep showing up, how she found the balance between protecting her private life and remaining the performer everyone expected her to be. And maybe more curiously, did she ever feel that her story with Chris hadn't completely closed? Chris, meanwhile, was carving his own path, though his challenges took a different shape. After leaving Smokey in 1986, he started fresh as a solo artist and scored massive hits like Midnight Lady, especially across Europe. His voice carried that same familiar warmth people loved, but now it belonged solely to him. Away from the spotlight, he had his wife Linda and their 5 children. A steady rhythm that helped him stay grounded while the world continued to ask questions he was tired of answering. It's kind of wild to think that Suzi Quatro is 75 now and still rocking stages, but what's even more interesting is that she's finally decided to talk a bit more openly about what really went on, or didn't, between her and Chris Norman. You'd think after all these years there'd be nothing left to say, right? Decades of interviews, magazine headlines, fan theories. Yet somehow she still managed to keep certain details tucked away until now. In her memoir Unzipped, Suzi didn't dance around the rumors. She addressed them straight on, calling all that gossip nonsense born from wishful thinking. You can almost hear her laughing as she says it. She made it clear that their relationship was purely professional, even though people always wanted it to be more. Apparently, they stayed in touch over the years, exchanging letters and phone calls, but it was always quiet, never for show, never for headlines. Just 2 musicians who understood each other in a way that didn't need to be broadcasted. Chris, for his part, has never said anything different. He's always been pretty respectful about the whole thing, often talking about how much Suzi's energy and style influenced him as an artist. He once mentioned that working with her made him rethink how to approach live performances, less polish, more rawness, and that stuck with him long after their hit Stumblin'in. You can tell that whatever they had was real in its own right, just not in the romantic way fans hoped. Suzi talked about how their differences actually made the collaboration work. "I was the fire, he was the calm," she said, which honestly sums up most great creative duos. She even shared a sweet story that hadn't been told before. After one particularly exhausting promo tour, Chris sent her a handwritten note that said, "Thanks for stumbling in with me." Simple, but meaningful. She kept it all these years. It became one of those sentimental little things that remind you how rare genuine connections are in the entertainment industry. And that's what makes their story interesting. It's not some secret affair or behind-the-scenes feud. It's just 2 people who connected deeply through music and managed to stay friends even after the spotlight moved on. Suzi admitted she sometimes wishes they'd done more together. "I wish we'd collaborated more. But life happened," she said, with that mix of nostalgia and acceptance you only get after living a full life. Now, both of them are in that comfortable semi-retired phase. Suzi still tours now and then because she can't completely walk away from the stage, and Chris seems to be more focused on family and quiet living. Yet when you look back, what they created together continues to echo. Stumblin'in wasn't just a one-time success, it set a tone for something new in rock music. Duets that weren't defined by gender roles or drama. It opened doors for later acts like Meatloaf and Ellen Foley, and even in a way, for collaborations like Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper decades later. The song itself has aged beautifully. It's still pulling in over 100 million streams on Spotify, which is wild when you think about how many songs from that era have faded away. There's just something timeless about it, probably because it came from a genuine place. And beyond that one song, both of them have left pretty big marks on music history. Suzi remains one of the trailblazers for women in rock. Joan Jett has said she looked up to her, and so have plenty of others like KT Tunstall. Chris, on the other hand, went on to sell over 20 million records on his own, carving out a reputation as a soft rock legend. So now, as Suzi opens up a little more about that chapter, it doesn't feel like gossip or confession, it feels like closure. She's just putting the final brushstrokes on a story that's always been about respect, artistry, and timing. Their connection, built on mutual admiration, didn't need to be romantic to be special, and maybe that's why it still resonates. Because when you strip away the rumors, what's left is two people who made something beautiful together, by accident almost. Just stumbling in, as the song says, but leaving something that lasts forever. If you enjoyed diving into this untold chapter of rock history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our deep dives into music legends. And we want to hear from you. What's your favorite Suzi and Chris moment? Or which music partnership do you think has that same magic? Drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, fam.